Welcome, everyone, to the Media Row podcast. I'm Justin Miller. Hope you had a great holiday break. I know I did. Went down to Missouri with Megan's family. It was a great time, but happy to be back. Going to have a lot to get to today with the Drake Bulldogs men's basketball team continuing to dominate. You have huge news with the Drake football head coach, Joe Woodley, being named after Todd Stepsis leaves for UNI. And then we have some great football coming up this week. Oregon, Ohio State, a rematch of the best game of 2024 in the regular season. That happens on Wednesday. We'll get to that. Few housekeeping things, though. No show tomorrow and on New Year's Day. Going to take those 2 days off, and then we'll be back to our normal schedule. And then one of the best Christmas gifts I got from my brother was he created us a logo. So we have our logos out. We'll get that on YouTube. It's all on social media, at Media Row Pod on Twitter. Make sure to like, subscribe, comment, all that good stuff. Really excited to start to make this look a little more professional and excited to grow this for 2025. Plan is to, get this on Spotify here in the next couple of days. And by next week, hopefully, we'll be consistently on Spotify, so you can listen to Media Row with Justin Miller on, your drive home and to work. So really excited for what 2025 is going to bring for everyone, and really excited to grow this. But today, let's just jump right into it because we have a lot to get to. Starting off, the Drake men's basketball team 12-0, 65-46 victory over the Belmont Bruins, a game that did not go the way I thought it would. 65-46 is not the final score I thought Drake would win by. I believe the Bulldogs were going to win that game. But with Belmont's ability to shoot the three and their offensive firepower, I know Drake has such a good defense, but I thought it was going to present a challenge for Drake, especially with Drake has had a weird schedule. They haven't had any consistency. I think the next month of January will finally be the first time Drake has like a consistent schedule of 2 games a week and not, a game here and then you wait 8 days and then here's your next game. So I thought it was going to present a challenge, and a packed Knapp Center. They came ready. This team just relied on what they've done for 11 previous games, relied on their strong defense, and took down the Belmont Bruins 65-46. Before we give our thoughts, here's Coach McCollum's opening thoughts after the 12th straight victory to start his career at Drake University.
First off, our preparation was in big part because of how well coached Belmont is, how talented they are offensively in particular, and how they've been good for so many years. Even Coach Alexander, even back to Lipscomb and whatnot. And so we were really tuned in to that scout, making sure that we executed what we needed to execute because they're so explosive offensively, so well coached, and our kids executed it, and we came back from break, kind of challenged them. I thought it was our offense that was the problem in the last game, and we actually were 1.24 points per possession, which is really high. So I was like, man, it must be our defense that was horrendous, and it was. So we came back and dialed it in, and obviously you saw the result of that tonight.
So main first thought with this game was Coach McCollum's ability to adjust this Drake's defense mid-game. Because what Emenecker and I talked about last week before our final show before Christmas was what happens with a Drake defense that is so physical on that side of the ball. What happens if they get a reffing crew that calls games closer? And within the first 4 minutes, Drake had 4 fouls. One of them on Bennett Sturts. What happens with a team that doesn't have great point guard depth? What happens when your main guy offensively and Bennett Sturts gets 2 quick fouls in the first half? The game looks a lot different. So the under 16 timeout hits, and this team played fundamentally sound defense, but still with that physicality and grit that McCollum has basically instituted into this team, and they just dominated. And it set up their offense. So a team that had 4 quick fouls in the first 4 minutes, they only had 2 the rest of the way. And Belmont, a team that had no fouls in the first 4 minutes, had 6 by the end of the first half. And it was just a classic tale of strong defense sets up easy offense. Drake and Belmont were tied going back and forth at 13 apiece. And then all of a sudden, Drake's defense, that adjustment that McCollum made during the under-16 timeout hit, and Drake ends that half on a 26-8 run. You blink, and all of a sudden, it's 39-21. You blinked, and you couldn't believe this Drake offense that missed their first 4 shots and looked really sluggish coming out of the gates in the first 4 minutes. Were committing fouls and all that. All of a sudden, they're up 39-21. They shot in the first half 53% from the field, and they were just able to control Belmont, who's been one of the Missouri Valley's best offensive teams. Then the second half hits, and you have a team that went into the locker room with all the momentum. You have the crowd as loud as possible in the Knapp Center, about 5,000 people packing the Knapp, all in white. Few fans wearing the McCollum white button-up with the blue tie. Asked him after the game about that, and he loves it and gave an all-time answer.
It creates the environment. Like, that's what we, like, I'm not one of those guys that begs for fans. That's not what I do. I will say this. We came in here, you wanted us to prove it, okay? And not you, but generally speaking, you know, hey, let's prove it. Let's see if they can compete. And we haven't proved that we can win the league. We haven't proved that we can finish the upper half. We haven't proved that we can make it. We haven't proved any of that. So we've got a lot to prove. We have proved that we're worth the price of admission, right? That's what we have proved. So we've done that. So we've done our part. So now let's do Des Moines' part, and let's get out here and let's see the show, right? And let's create that energy and create that environment. But I'm not gonna beg for them. It's a good show, man. Like, they should come.
And just, it was a great atmosphere, but you have all that momentum. You're expecting it to happen the same exact way in the second half. No sluggish start, but Drake just came out and maybe was comfortable with the lead, but just could not get the offense to click. They went from shooting 53% in the first half to 39% in the second half, only making 9 shots from the field in the second half. But it was just the defense. This defense allowed a Drake offense to have a sluggish second half and still win comfortably, still just control the entire game. Even when Belmont started to make the 3, which was the biggest concern with how well they shoot the ball, they made 5 in the second half, only 1 in the first half. Even when that started to happen, Drake was still in control. This Drake defense, 16 turnovers forced, 13 steals, and held the Missouri Valley Conference second leading offense in points per game, averaging 81, to just 46 points. Only 37% from the field, 39% from the three-point line. That was the story of the game, was their strong defense led to easy offense, and it shocked me. I thought it was going to be a closer, harder fought game, but this Drake defense is something special. And I'm not going to I'm not going to say it's what's going to lead them to a national title, but in terms of gaining that Missouri Valley Conference title in McCollum's first year, I like the way this team has balance. And we've said it from the start, is they have such a strong defense, and we've seen teams in the past like Virginia that have such a strong defense, but their offense lulls. They only put up 50 points a game. Drake can continuously put up 65 plus and have a strong defense. I don't know how you stop them. In terms of the Missouri Valley, there's better teams than Drake, but in the Missouri Valley right now, Drake is definitely in the driver's seat, and there's not a team really that is having great continuous success. Bradley is looking good. I think Murray State will get into a rhythm. Indiana State has found a rhythm, but everyone else looks fairly beatable. And Drake has had some scares, but I like the way Ben McCollum can make in-game adjustments, and you see it. And this is a group full of D2 athletes coming out in their first year, and it's 12-0. It's just an amazing story. I'm trying to, keep my Bulldog bias limited, as I have a jersey and shirt on. But I swear, when I cover games, I try to critique them as if they're not a team I cheer for. But right now, when you have a performance like that against one of the conference's best offenses, it's hard not to start to drink the Kool-Aid and think about March and what a run Drake could do and how it's scarier for those top teams if Drake gets an 11 seed. If I'm a 6 seed, I would not want to play Drake. If I'm one of those middle of the pack, higher conference teams, I would not want to play Drake. A few other notes with the game. Sturt's a quiet 20 points. Abreu was kind of the main guy offensively in the second half, 15 points for him. Here's a quick comment by Ben McCollum on Abreu's ability to really take charge in that second half and help the Drake offense that was struggling in the second half really put Belmont down and win their 12th straight game.
Yeah, he's the Grinch now. He was the elf before. He's the Grinch. So he came back from Christmas and he handed out a bunch of gifts, and he told us that he's now the Grinch. He's not going to hand out any more free passes, free gifts. So Johnny likes that. Yeah, that was a good thing. Okay, it's Johnny. Yes. So Daniel's he's kind of the jack of all trades, meaning he can guard multiple positions, he can shoot, he can drive. I thought coming back from, maybe it was Charleston, he got a little carried away, kind of went out of character, not in a bad way, just tried to press, tried to duplicate the success that he had. And I thought today he just let what was supposed to come to him, and that's the result of that. He doesn't have bad days. Dan's got a motor. He's phenomenal.
Also, a huge shout out to Nate Ferguson and Tavion Banks coming off the bench. Cam Mannion had an off game, just didn't look as offensively strong in terms of scoring as we're usually used to seeing. 1 of 5 from the field, only 9 minutes of gameplay. Still continued to hustle and play really strong defensive basketball and attack the glass as he's usually doing. But Nate Ferguson and Tavion Banks came in for one of the starters that just was having an off day and really put out a great performance. Nate Ferguson had a few steals, had some really strong rebounds, good defense by him. What I like from him is he just stays straight up. He has the size advantage. If he just stays straight up, it's tough to get over Nate Ferguson, and the muscle he's put on during the off season has really helped him too. The only concerns with this game is just clean up the passing, Drake. That's the main issue that I saw against Belmont. They had 10 turnovers against a Belmont team that isn't a great defensive team by any means. And just it looked like at times got lazy with the ball. McCollum likes those high ball screens that lead to handoffs on top of the 3-point line. And just at times, those were getting tipped away or just weren't clean handoffs. And I know in the film room, McCollum, Sturts, and all those guards will get that cleaned up. So that was my biggest critique, was just the passing game didn't look as clean as it usually does. Again, the 3-ball didn't fall. And if you're a Drake fan, at this point, 12 games into the season, you're kind of seeing what the identity of the team is, and it's strong defense to set up easy offense. The 3-ball is just going to be inconsistent for this team, I think. And that makes me nervous trying to get into that deep Missouri Valley Conference run. But it'll be interesting to see how McCollum gets these guys prepared and, battle in mentally, because it's tough when you're Mascari and the three ball doesn't fall right away. He had a strong game, but, just how do these guys battle mentally when shots aren't falling from deep? And what happens, if they start off slow like how they did against Belmont, and a team like Bradley gets off to a quick 9-0 run or anything like that? How does a team that is struggling to shoot the three ball really battle back? So that'll be interesting to see. That just makes me a little nervous, but not too concerned, because the team is 12-0. Clearly it is working, and they've showed that this is a team that can win in multiple various ways. They can win by just holding you to 50 points. They can win by hitting the three. I mean, there's a few games in the Charleston Classic where they had 9+ threes made. Or a very balanced team like we saw against Kansas State or against Belmont. So those are my biggest concerns and critiques going into Wednesday, where they will play UIC at UIC. They're 2-0 in the Missouri Valley Conference, 12-0 overall, leading the conference. So looks like Ben McCollum, no time to slow down now. You're in conference play. So really excited to see what happens on Wednesday, what adjustments they make after their big victory over Belmont, 65-46. Moving on, the Drake Bulldogs made some big news with hiring head coach Joe Woodley from Grandview to be the new Drake Bulldogs football coach. And Drake just won back-to-back PFL titles. They lose their head coach in Todd Stepsis, who goes to UNI, and I think everyone in the Des Moines area thought Joe Woodley right away. The stats this guy has put up is video game-like, and we're going to go through them. So Joe Woodley, 17 seasons at Grandview, 6 of them as the head coach, and in his time with Grandview, and I'm going to go through his head coaching stats. In his 6 seasons as head coach, won an NAIA national championship just weeks before being hired as the Drake Bulldogs head coach. It capped off another undefeated season. He has 2 NAIA quarterfinals appearances, 2 semifinals appearances, and 2 title game appearances. A 72-5 record, no losses in the regular season. I couldn't do that on Madden. Every time I'm about to lose in the regular season, I shut it off and restart it. I'm that kind of guy. But 72-5, not a single regular season loss. 5-time coach of the year, and one of 30 coaches ESPN said would define the next decade of football. Only NAIA coach to be named. And what he has done at Grandview in that sustained success, I think will translate perfectly at Drake. And he mentioned in his press conference how he could have stuck around with the Vikings. It could have been easy to stay where he's comfortable, where he's been for 17 years. But he was provided a unique opportunity to move up in the coaching ranks and not have to uproot your family. I mean, you're just going down the street, really, but you're still able to play higher competition football. And you're seeing how in the PFL, a lot of coaches are getting Division I jobs. Todd Stepsis, perfect example. He was able to be the defensive coordinator at Drake and then head coach, wins 2 PFL titles, and then he goes to UNI. And Woodley, what I liked about his press conference is he gave credit to Todd Stepsis. It was just a class act of, Todd has built something special at Drake, but I'm not going to take what he has done and throw it out just so I can do what I want to do. He is going to take what has worked and implement what has worked with him at Grandview and really mix the two and make it his own. And I'm so excited to see what that looks like come up in August. I think the players are going to respond well. There's a handful of Drake football players that came to the press conference right before tip-off in the basketball game that really supported Woodley, and I think that's going to go far, because what made Todd Stepsa so good is he allowed the players to be on an even keel with the coaches. They could speak their minds. They could make critiques just the same way coaches could, and they could do it in a way that, Stepsis made it a comfortable environment where they could speak their minds and have the confidence to do that. And Woodley's the same way. He wants the players to feel that collective whole. He's not an I guy, he's a we guy. So it's really exciting to see what Woodley's going to do. Another home run by just Brian Harden and this athletic department in terms of hiring. You have Allison Pullman, who is fantastic with the Drake women's basketball team. You pick up McCollum from Division II at Northwest Missouri State, and he clearly 12-0, great hire. And they all just have great attitudes as well. Super easy to interview, super easy to talk to. They want Drake to be publicized, and they're excited for it. And Joe Woodley's the same exact way. And I cannot wait to see what he is able to build with this Drake football team, because I think it will be special.
My dad and I started that program from scratch. I knew every single player that's walked through those doors for 17 years. We bought the first shoulder pads together, the first helmet together, designed the uniforms, all those things. I was able to help him. I was an assistant on his staff when we won a national title in 2013. Transitioned to me as the head coach. I was able to I hate saying I so much, but we were able to win a national championship as me as the head coach. I feel like, I was ready for something new. It finally just came to me like, I need a new challenge. And that's really what it boiled down to. And again, that sounds selfish, but that deep down inside, I feel like that's what I felt I, kind of owed to myself to go try something new. And I'm thankful that I did it, and I'm glad I'm sitting here right now. More than glad, I'm ecstatic that I'm sitting here right now to start this new challenge. The prior staff or the foundation that they left behind, these guys have won a lot of football games in the past 2 years, and we're certainly the plan is not to slow that down. I can tell you that. I'm not used to that, and I certainly don't want to get used to it. So we're going to do everything we can to continue to keep this thing going. And
so Coach Woodley, new head coach with the Drake Bulldogs, really excited to see what he does. Before we finish up today, going to go through the Oregon-Ohio State game, because we want to get to that before we take our break, because we won't have a show on the day of the Rose Bowl on Wednesday. Ohio State 2.5-point favorite after their big victory over Tennessee, which I understand why they have that 2.5 with, you have all the momentum on Ohio State right now. Oregon has had a week off. They won the Big Ten title. They get that first round bye. Ohio State looked like the Ohio State we've all been waiting to see. So I understand why 2.5 is favoring Ohio State, but it's really going to come down for Ohio State. Can they stop the home run plays? The last time these two teams met, Ohio State lost 32-31 to Oregon, and Oregon had 7 plays of 25-plus yards, 2 going for over 40 yards. And Dan Lanning not only destroyed Ohio State with those big plays, but his play calling and his balanced play calling, 341 passing yards, 2 touchdowns, but 155 rushing yards and 2 rushing touchdowns as well. It just put so much pressure on that Ohio State defense of they can't attack anything because they don't know what's coming up next. Is it going to be a 5-yard run, or is it going to be a 15-yard pass? And then Dylan Gabriel, with his ability to move inside and out of the pocket, just put so much pressure on this Ohio State defense to really find a rhythm. That being said, Ohio State lost by 1 and could have easily won that game because a few clock mismanagement points from Ryan Day and Will Howard and all of that. But they were so close to winning that game. And I think Ohio State, you just throw the ball quickly like you did against Tennessee and throw it to one of your 3 future NFL wide receivers. You set up Henderson and Judkins with those passes, and they will be so tough to stop. The only concern is Oregon is just the most consistent team all year long. That's why they're the number 1 seed. That's why everyone's hyped on Oregon. I would love for Ohio State to get their revenge, but you go with the consistent team at this point. And I'm still, that Tennessee win looked good, looked great. But what Ohio State team's going to show up Wednesday, I don't know. Is it going to be the Ohio State team that fumbled the bag against Michigan? Or is it going to be the Ohio State team that looked pissed off and looked ready for war against Tennessee? And I'm leaning more towards the team we saw against Tennessee because this is a revenge game. Ryan Day, again, needs to, for some fans, I was on the edge. If they lost in that first round to Tennessee at home, I was probably going to be on the side of kick Ryan Day. But you win that game. And now let's see how he plays against Oregon. I think he's still a great coach. Yes, he's struggled against teams that win the national championship, but so does everyone else. But it's because he's in the horseshoe that everyone's thinking that he should be fired. I was on the edge. But it really comes down to just take down those home run plays. No penalties by the secondary. How will Oregon handle their week off? I think Lanning will have these guys ready. I really like Dan Lanning as a head coach. And I think Oregon actually wins this one just because they're more consistent. They've been consistent all year long. Ohio State hasn't. And that really, it is hard for me to pick the team that I don't know which team will come out of the tunnel. That is my hardest reason to not pick Ohio State. So Oregon, I think, wins the Rose Bowl, moves forward into the semifinals. But again, a huge thank you to everyone for following along on social media, for all your comments, likes, subscribes here on YouTube. Really excited for what 2025 is going to bring. I have a lot of ideas and a lot of big news that I'm excited to share with everyone. Spotify, hopefully by next week. Logos are already out, so we look more professional. And just continue to follow along. Follow me on Twitter at Justin_C Miller. Follow me on TikTok at Justin Miller on air. And as well, follow at Media Row Pod on Twitter and on YouTube. So you can stay up to date. We always post highlights throughout the week. So on Tuesday and Wednesday, when we're not even doing a show, we'll definitely make sure to post some highlights from today's show and just continue to put out on social media. Wednesday probably will give more Ohio State takes quickly here on social media. But again, no show tomorrow, no show on Wednesday. Then we'll be back to normal after the holidays, and really excited to get this thing going in 2025. So thank you to everyone for following along. Again, Drake Bulldogs 12-0, new head coach Joe Woodley, and Ohio State takes on Oregon on Wednesday. I'll be sure to watch that. But thank you, everyone. Have a great New Year's Eve. Have a great 2020 start to your 2025. I'll see you on Thursday.